and today we will analyze game number 2 of Magnus Carlsen, which he played against Anish Giri. And even though Carlsen lost this match to Giri, this match is extremely important as regards how even the beginners or even the intermediate players should think about each and every position. And you can find out and spot tactics at any position because what you say, no position is completely out of tactics anytime. Okay, so let's start this game. And Anish is white and Magnus is black, and Anish starts with e4, the king's pawn opening. c5, Sicilian defense. Knight to f3, g6, and now comes e4. g6 is known as accelerated dragon variation, and now usually for d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4 is followed with knight c6, and then black goes bishop g7, knight f6 and d6. Okay, so this is a very standard structure for black, and Magnus is pretty confident about it. C captures on d4, knight captures on d4, solve this theory, knight to c6, and there are options. You can even go d6 first and then knight to c6, but knight to c6 first is better. It immediately challenges this knight on d4. You have c4. This variation is called the Maruk-Zivine variation, and it's the most famous variation, the most played move in this particular variation, because you can go knight c3, bishop e3, and there are lines where white even develops this bishop too, but Anish of course goes for the most solid one. c4, knight to f6, knight to c3, knight to f6 directly attacking this pawn, knight to c3 defending it. These are all theory moves. d6 now, and bishop to e2 as I already mentioned. Now white prepares to catch his shot and even push the pawn if he needs in future. Knight takes d4, queen takes d4, the only move, and bishop to g7. And already you can see that black is pretty well developed. I mean, this bishop is on such a great diagonal. He's ready to castle his shot, and white is also developed quite good, because white can go bishop g5, bishop e3 whenever needed. He can even push f4, f5, and that's why white holds a slightly upper hand. If we switch on the engine, yeah, this position is +1. So white holds slightly upper hand just because it's more easy to attack with the white side. You have castles, and now queen back to d3, and this shows the presence of mind of Anish Giri. He knows that this queen is in the line of this bishop, and anytime if he gets knight to g4 or this knight moves somewhere, then the queen will be under attack. a5 now by Carlsen, and bishop to e3, continuing with the development. Bishop to d7, and this bishop d7 move is I think there is no other good square for this bishop, because you don't want to develop this bishop to e6 and kind of shelter up this pawn. f5 is not available and g4 is not available, so d7 is the only available square for this bishop in this complete diagonal. Bishop d4 now, and he tells okay, always remember, whenever black plays the King's Indian structure, now this is a Sicilian accelerated dragon variation, but this particular structure with a bishop on e7, this bishop is the most, or we can say the biggest defender of this king. So you should always not lose this dark squared bishop, because this bishop is a key piece for white for its attack. Because this is the only piece which can challenge this bishop right away. So Anish does the same, bishop to e4, bishop to c6. Now Carlsen finds a good diagonal for his bishop, and now b3, always nice supporting prophylactic move, stopping a4 and also supporting the c4 pawn. Knight back to d7. Now Carlsen says okay, you can have this exchange, and at least I will improve my king's position. Bishop takes, king takes, and now queen to d4 check. And of course knight e5, knight e5 is not possible because of f4, and knight f6 is it's good, but this knight on d7 may also have plans of coming to e5 after the king moves from g7. So Carlsen plays king to g8, now keeping the knight on d7 because he has different plans. Rook f to d1, and there are many people who always ask that why, how should we get know that which rook we have to bring on d1. That, like I mean, rook a to d1 is also a good move, but you should always evaluate the position based on which side is better for you to attack. Now it's more convenient for white to go rook a to c1 and then control both of these files, because in future if white challenges c5, then any one of these two files is surely going to get open, or even both files can get open. Queen to b6, challenging queens. Carlsen feels that okay, after knight takes b6, it will be better for him, but it's not that easy. And Anish finds a perfect combination, you can say a perfect positional play example, and he even exchanges queens. Queens captures on b6, knight captures, and now f4. And he takes the advantage now that this g6 is kind of a weakness in front of black's king, and he wants to play f5 whenever possible. Carlsen of course avoids it. He plays f5, and now comes e captures on f5. Rook captures on f5, and now finally g3. Yeah, a good supporting move, supporting this f4 pawn, and also allowing this bishop to have such a great diagonal. But because Anish's idea will also be to go king f2 and go bishop f3 and exchange of pieces. Okay. g5, Carlsen immediately finds a break because he doesn't want Anish to get solidified with this great structure. So g5 Magnus, and now Anish goes bishop d3, and by this move he actually challenges Magnus in a different way, because now after this move he not only attacks the rook, but he also forces the rook to be in the same line, because if you go rook back to f8, then you just lose a pawn. And also Anish plans for a different thing, which he of course does in the game, but I will just explain you as the moves proceed. Rook to c5, now Carlsen is bound to support this pawn, and now rook to e1, and now Anish finds a way. Okay, now I'll first attack this e7 pawn, rook to e8, and now knight to e4. And the main plan of this move is to get either a pawn or get rid of this excellent bishop that Magnus has. Of course, Magnus doesn't want to lose a pawn versus so strong a player. Bishop captures, and now rook captures. And many a times intermediate players make a mistake, they capture the bishop. But you have to double up the rooks, so take this move as an advantageous move and then double up your rooks whenever it is possible. Rook captures on e4, g captures on f4, and now rook captures on f4. Of course, Anish doesn't want to disturb the structure. Knight back to d7. Now Carlsen prevents knight to f6 or knight to e5. Both the squares are good because Anish has a light squared bishop, so probably he would never be able to attack this knight unless he decides to give up an exchange. Rook a to e1, and now comes knight to e5. A great centralized knight attacking the bishop, and also if the king comes forward, then this knight is going to be too much powerful. Bishop to e4 now. Of course, now Anish wants to go bishop e5 and go bishop back to g2 and try to weaken up Carlsen's structure, because all of Carlsen's pawns are almost all of, not this b7 pawn. He's attacking the b7 pawn, but he knows Carlsen is going to play b6. It's not so tactically active threat. So Carlsen goes b5, and now Anish takes, okay, c captures on b5, no problem. Rook captures, and now he goes rook to h4. Now he reveals that, okay, now I have to attack this pawn. And I don't think why Anish Carlsen did not play knight to g6, because this would have really done a lot to him. But Carlsen decides that, okay, he probably, I don't think he overlooked this, but Carlsen plays rook to b4, and this allows Anish with a great breakthrough. He plays bishop captures on h7 with a check. King to g7. Of course, in this position you can't go rook captures on h7 because you get rook captures on e4, and after rook captures on e4 you get king captures on h7, so that's not good for you. Bishop captures on h7 with a check, king to g7, and now bishop back to e4. Anish doesn't want to trade the rooks. He wants to make the most of the position. A4, now asking Anish to break the pawn chain, and b captures on a4. Well, rook captures on a4, and now rook to e2. And this is a typical move that every player should remember. If the opponent is attacking a pawn on the 7th rank, you place your rook on the 2nd rank. And the rook on 2nd rank is as good as you can say a piece that is controlling two complete files at a time, because this file is open and it's also defending a pawn here. And now Anish has a definite plan. He wants to go king c2, rook f4, h4, and try to make the most of these 2 pawns. He has 2 passes. Rook to h8, rook captures, king captures. Of course, that's okay for Anish because now his plan is more clear. King to g2, h4, king h3, g4, and he may try to push the pawns. Bishop to d5. Now, this is how he tries to control the position. He first avoids e6 and d5. And now bishop to d5. Now this piece is a piece. He will also play bishop to b3 in the next move, and then the pawn and the bishop will support each other very nicely. Rook to a5, and now bishop back to b3. That's what we analyzed. Knight to c6. Now Carlsen prepares to go knight to d4, and now rook to d2. Okay, not allowing knight to d4. King to g7, king to g2. This is common endgame tricks. You have to, of course, make your king more active in the endgame. Knight back to e5, and now h3, even taking the g4 square from the knight. And if you look at this knight, it's a very strong knight, but it doesn't have any squares. Knight to g6 is worthless. f7, c6 is also worthless, and c4 is controlled by the bishop. f3 is controlled by the king. d3 is controlled by the rook, and g4 is controlled by this h3 pawn now. Knight back to b7, rook to e2, now attacking this pawn. And if you go e5, it's okay, but I don't know why Carlsen probably believes in solidifying the position. Carlsen plays king to f8, and now comes rook to f2 with the check. And now if you see this bishop, although it's a single piece, it's controlling this entire diagonal. And if Carlsen ever tries to go king e8, now after bishop e6, the position will be totally in favor of Anish. Knight f6, blocking the check, and now g4, immediately threatening h4 and g5. King to g7, it's always safe to get out of the pin, and now rook to f4. Now again, if you see this knight has no h5, it doesn't have d5, although it has d5, but when you're pawn down, you don't really want to exchange off pieces. And this rook to f4 move is a great move. I mean, this knight can't move because of rook f7 check threat, and this rook has somewhere to go, but it is still to find the right square for it. e5, now okay, Carlsen says I will advance my 2 pawns. I have 2 center pawns after all, and there are too much advantages for me. You have g5 by sorry, just a minute. You have g5 by Anish because of this d5. Now g5 is possible. Knight to e4. And now this knight to e4 move is again, you don't have options, but knight to e4 allows Anish to do the next most great tactical variation. Bishop captures on d5. And okay, you can have my g5 pawn, but then I will be a pawn with pawns on both sides of the board, which is always advantageous for anybody, because if all the pieces get exchanged, the king has to run to a particular side, and then it's all over. Knight captures on g5, and bishop back to b3. And it says, okay, it's not over. Now I will threaten to give 7 check, you can't move this knight, and I'm threatening h4. e5, and now rook to a4. Challenging the rook. Carlsen, of course, declines it. Rook to c5, rook to c4, again challenging. Rook to a5, and now h4 finally. And again, if you see, this is what it is. I mean, Carlsen is positionally strong, and he's playing all the strong moves, but after this h4, you see this knight has nowhere to go. There is no f3, there is no e4, there is e6, but still after you should not keep your knight hanging in the line of the bishop. There is f7, but it makes rook to c7, and there is h7, but the knight will do nothing on h7. So this is how Anish plays. Knight back to e6, and now rook to a4, again offering a trade and almost forcing this trade, because if you don't trade in such kind, then you'll lose your knight anyways. And now Carlsen finds a very good solution. Knight to e6, knight to f4 check, supported by the pawn, king to f3, and now rook to c5, because Carlsen of course doesn't want to trade the pieces. Rook to c4 and rook back to a5. And now comes the breakthrough. Rook to c7 with the check, and I think it was okay for Carlsen to go king f8 or yeah, not king f6 of course, because it missed rook f7 with a check. But actually, I think Carlsen blundered this game at this point, because now it's plus 1.2. King to f6 is what the engine suggests, and king to h6 is also what the engine suggests, with of course Carlsen played. But now the advantage actually increases for white, and Anish played the most strong move as regards a human, because now this move bishop to c4 actually does everything for white, and now white just needs to keep patience and be in the game just to have this mate threat. Rook to a3 with a check, king to g4. All these moves are quite good. Now again threatening the same mate, and see the helplessness of this king. Now this king has nowhere to go, and it can't even save itself from getting checkmated. Last try from Carlsen, knight to d3, and now king to f5. And now this king is too much active than this passive king. Knight to b4, now attacking this bishop. Bishop to e4, and Anish of course puts the bishop in such a square that now this e5 pawn is attacked. King f6 is threatened. There is no rook f3 check, and if you capture my rook a2 pawn, which is the most humanly move when you have no time on the clock, which of course Carlsen does, we captures on a2, and now comes the most astonishing move, and it is almost forced that Carlsen resigned this, and it's almost obvious, because this move ends the game in a single dash, and Anish of course plays king to g4. And if you look at the engine suggests rook g2 check, which is the only option to save this rook h7 checkmate. If you play rook a7, then simply rook a7, and after that in the next move you are sure shot going to get checkmated. So this is how we can say that Anish defeated Carlsen in its own way. That is a positional way. But if you see this position, never lose hopes. I mean, even if the position is equal materially, still the position matters. Now, if Carlsen had gone king to f8 or king to f6, this similar situation would never have arisen, because you can say smothering your king in the corner is never an option for any other player. I mean, you can see the position is still equal, but there is no defense against this rook to h7 checkmate, and that's incredible. What do you say? Tactics, but not tactics. It's actually incredible sight that Anish has. I mean, he can just see this. He can see the mating patterns, and that's what all the players has to learn from them. Okay, so even if the position is equal, I repeat again, there is no way that as such a way that you can save rook h7 checkmate. Of course, rook g2 is there. Bishop takes g2, bishop back to e4 is what follows. But in this position, actually, Magnus Carlsen resigned, because you don't want to play a rook down position against a grandmaster of your own level. Okay, so that was a game, and even though Magnus launched this game, I'm showing this game in the series because it's an interesting game. I mean, many players think that if I play positionally strong in a game, or if I play absolute best moves in the game, I will still be able to win the game, but it's not that. You have to always look for tactics, you have to always look for positions, you have to always look for mating patterns, and it's the most important thing that any position that any player must look out in any position. And